Our elderly neighbor fell sick and had to go to the hospital. Her niece asked us to take care of her dog while she was away. So after schoolwork and dinner, me and my brother were sent over to make sure he was doing okay. So it was late at night in this weird old lady's house. My brother was in the shed with the dog, and I was in the living room looking at old creepy photos on the mantelpiece. What follows is true. I heard the door creak, and then a woman's voice called out the dog's name. I freaked out and turned around, but there was nobody. I thought maybe it was the neighbor's niece, but it had that weird, did I hear that outside my head or inside it, echo to it. So I thought I was just letting this creepy house get to me. But then I went out to my brother and Naki, and he was freaking out too, because he thought he heard a woman's voice inside the shed with him saying, "Oh, there you are." We both agreed the voice had that weird, in-your-head sound to it, and we were convinced there was ghosts in this place. We left the dog in the shed, then went home. We were greeted by my dad, who told us the neighbor's niece had just called to say the neighbor had passed away in the hospital a few hours ago. My sister and I were playing outside when we were younger, and an elderly couple was walking by our yard. Our yard had a cemetery in the back of it, so it was quite a common local attraction for tourists, as this house was built in the 1800s, and most of the graves were from children who died back then from the flu. There were some creepy stories from that place, but nothing lives up to what happened all those years ago. We were playing outside, and this old couple kept pestering my sister about what her name was. As they approached us and got closer, we were just little kids and got terribly scared. We ran inside and told our mom what had happened. The following week, I heard a story on the news about an elderly couple approaching a teenage girl, kidnapping and raping her. I found out it was the same couple that had approached me and my sister that day. My house sits further back in the lot than most other houses. It is a strange layout as well. The sidewalk runs the length of the living room and ends at the front porch, which lets you into the living room. Large windows that do not open allow great light into the living room, but at the cost of no privacy. The rest of my family was on vacation, and having the house to myself, I decided I would get smashed. Well, I passed out on the couch in the living room about 9, when I realized I was too scared to walk back up to my room. The couch is right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills and could not figure out why. Then the banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked out the window. Someone was standing right there, pounding on the glass. Without moving, I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning. The banging continues, then it stops suddenly, but I still did not move. Suddenly it commences again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone is banging on the windows, and another person is banging on the front door. They kept doing it. It would not go away. Finally, after about 45 minutes, they stopped. It was the most terrifying event I can recall at the moment. It made me a nervous wreck after that. I called a friend the next day to see if he would come over and stay the rest of the week with me. And his response was, "What for? So we can both get murdered in our sleep?" A few years ago, I was home alone at night and I was watching TV in the living room when I heard my doorbell ring. Whenever I hear the doorbell ring, especially when I'm home alone, I'm very cautious to answer it. I walk up to the peephole without turning on the porch light, so they don't know if anyone is actually home or not. I look through. It's really dark, but I can see a small figure, more like a black blob. I don't know its definite shape, and it had to be around 3 to 4 feet tall, doing like a dancing motion, dipping down and oscillating its arms outward. Think of a person moving their arms like wings gracefully. It was dark outside, but this figure was more opaque, so I could see this going on. After a few seconds, I stopped looking through the peephole because it was too freaky to look at. I finally regained some courage and looked back through. Whatever was there was now gone. To this day, I still don't know what that was, and I get freaked out just thinking about it. My aunt is a retired middle school science teacher. She loves all aspects of the subject: botany, geology, archaeology. During her time as a teacher, she would take workshops during the summer offered through the school district. One in particular was set in New Mexico, so off she went with a group of her fellow teachers. One night, after an exhausting day of field studies, my aunt and her group were headed back to their hotel near Roswell. It was around midnight, but the hotel wasn't far from their site. Because of this, they didn't feel like they needed a map, and back then, GPSs weren't even thought of yet. The group passed an old rundown convenience store on the side of a four-way stop, and remembered that earlier in the day, they had passed it on their way to the site. From the stop, they went straight, and 10 minutes later, they passed the same store. The group laughed, thinking the sun and their exhaustion had made their memory foggy. Confident, they kept going straight. 10 minutes in, the store is passed again. Worried, the group heads right at the stop. The same store is passed again. They take a left, and pass it again, and again. I'm not sure how they finally made it back, but they did. My aunt said she felt like she was in the Twilight Zone, like the store was a prop and a huge terrifying joke. Hearing the story gives me weird chills to this day.